Weak spots. Tanks have weak spots. Sometimes those weak spots are well known and logical, sometimes they're a tad more confusing, and sometimes they're your platoon mates. Oh, you are yellowish.
Wow,
Yeah,
really?
you're young. Yeah. Well, let me see. Yeah.
Surprise,
wow,
motherfucker!
Wow.
Do you even see me through the door?
No! I just...
Wow.
You couldn't have timed that any fucking better. I just hit the door.
Today, we're going to take a look at some weak spots that I have deemed stupid. Now, stupid is a fairly broad term, so for the purpose of clarity, stupid could mean they make a bad tank worse, it could mean they make a good tank not as bad as it needs to be, they could be non-existent weak spots that look like weak spots, or they could be asinine in some other random way that I've come up with in my brain, or they could be number one. A double feature, the FV215B and the Panzer Quad 7. Now, both of these tier 10 heavy tanks, one of which is not available by conventional means anymore, having been replaced by the Super Conqueror, both of these vehicles have huge weak spots on the side. Now that wouldn't be so bad except for the fact that both of these tanks had rear-mounted turrets, meaning their primary method of mitigating damage, their ethos, revolves around poking out a corner like this. Like, awesome! I'm sure glad I have this rear-mounted turret so I can more easily expose the weakest part of my entire tank. Yeah! You might be saying, but Steve, you can't have a tank that's got no weak spots, one at side swipes. That would be overpowered. Well, yet, bonus fact, the Panzer 7's ammo rack is exactly where its weak spot happens to be. Ain't that a bitch? The E75TS, a very capable German premium light tank, heavy tank that came out of last year's loot boxes. Aesthetically, it kinda looks like an E75 has eaten a lurver. And from appearances, you would assume that the cupola is the logical choice when engaging this thing sans lower plate. Quite correct, the cupola is a weak spot, meaning unlike the Malbrecher, it is stoppable. However, the cupola is 140mm of base armour, with effective values ranging from 160 to 190. That in addition to the octagonal space bastard on top I've lovingly nicknamed the Hope Note. Now most equal tier tanks, and certainly almost all higher tier tanks, can manage that cupola. For them, yeah, go for it, it's not a bad play. But as we all know, you can meet an E75TS in an E100 down to anything as low as a Cromwell. So if by some cruel whim of fate you end up fighting a hold-down E75 in a Cromwell, well, for some reason, people just kind of forgot to put armour on the little ears to the left and right of the gun mantlet, meaning they both consist of a paltry 60mm of spaced armour. Now, of course, spaced armour is going to mean you can't mean it with HE shells, but any kind of AP, APCR shell, you are in the money. And yes, for the purposes of comedy and to make my point, you are seeing me murder an E75TS hold down with a Cow Sanka. I'm very proud of this achievement. The Tiger P and Ferdinand have the exact same holes, meaning they are the exact same amount of shit. Which is a lot. Not least of which, because the portions on the outer edges of the hull that even flat onto you are about 115mm of armour. These are meant to be assault tanks, and that, combined with the fact that they have that massive Feko cupola, that is tragic. The Tiger P in water tanks, he murdered Bambi. He murdered him. I don't know. What? The overmatch mechanic states that if Bambi is 3 times higher The overmatch mechanic states that if a shell caliber is over 3 times the nominal thickness of the armor that it hits, it will penetrate no matter the angle. This has an impact on multiple tanks. The IS-3, the Roof Hatch, the T-34, the Object 257, the IS-4, but in few circumstances is it as crippling and ridiculous as on the Tiger II. Now, side note, if you ever see a Tiger II with 1,500 hit points, shoot it straight in the face, because, most, though, will have 1,600 hit points, meaning they have the top turret. The top turret with a massive feck-off 40mm plate on top, which is in fact one of the largest, most easily exploited overmatch engines in the entire game. If you have a 120.1mm gun or higher, you will pen this every single time from any angle without fail. The main reason this is so dumb is because the Tiger II has a cupola. So why on earth it has this asinine disadvantage is utterly beyond me. Sticking with cupola-themed idiocy, the T-28 has 2 of the buggers, and its machine gun port is legitimately a weak spot. Imagine that. These cupolas are actually quite thick though, each one being about 230mm. So why is this dumb? Well, because literally the entire front of the turret outside the gun mantlet is at its best 20mm less thick than the second cupolas. If you shoot low and to the side, you find values as low as 165. So what is the point in the cupolas if the entire face of the turret is the weak point? 268 version 4 has a cupola. I don't care. It also has a massive, juicy lower plate. 340mm. The pixel plate. Let us talk about the pixel plate. The lower plate. The lower plate. This is a... well, it's a pixel plate. It's a tiny little feckin' bit on the bottom of the 268 version 4, which Wargaming think is a lower plate. When it's flat onto you, it's literally 0.2 degrees away from being an auto balance. Here's me and my beautiful assistant having an Object 268 version 4 pixel plate fight. It lasted 4.5 minutes and no one had any fun. The Japanese heavies are, in my opinion, a fine example of Wargaming's lack of awareness or misunderstanding of their own game concepts. Particularly the previous overzealous derp gun iterations. But can we all just agree quickly that not one human being, not one entity outside of Wargaming's imagination, has ever looked at a Type 5 Heavy and gone, oh no, I better fire my standard ammo at this lanky-dink little piece of bullshit that Wargaming nerfed by 10mm. Just on behalf of the World of Tanks community, Wargaming, I'd like to take a moment to thank you for nerfing that spot by 10mm so that we can all collectively ignore it while we spam heat at the entire fucking tank. Yeah, I can design Type 5 heavy armor too. The Marblasher. Third take. I give up. Ever wanted to get accused of hacking? Happens to me all the time. I've got a great way that you can do it too. Just subscribe and like the video. I hate myself already. Great way to get accused of hacking. Penning the turrets of IS-7s. I love it. Now, the vast majority of tanks are taller than the IS-7. So, if you're in a tall tank and you're facing an IS-7 and you want to really piss him off, face hug him. Most IS-7 players will be all over that opportunity. They love to face hug. Now, at that point, you wait. Very patiently. very patiently until he takes the initiative and starts aiming at your cupola. And then you shoot him right here, right below his gun. The area where the gun is raised is about 130mm, and in addition, it's hilarious. The mouse. Armor incarnate. When angled perfectly, its 240mm of frontal turret and 210 at the side can bounce almost anything, including heat shells. Or I should say, especially heat shells. Now, some tanks at tier 8, 9 and 10 that will meet a mouse, right, have high pen APCR instead of heat as their premium. Think E75 and IS-7, or the best example, the AMX-50B, which has the highest APCR pen on any heavy tank in the entire game. 325mm. Now, as I've talked on before, APCR shells have their advantages over heat, for example, faster shell travel time and performance against spaced armor. Spaced armor in this case being the gun mantlet of the mouse. Now, flat on, the turret cheeks are a far better shot than the mantlet, but if the mouse is angling perfectly to bounce heat, then the mouse driver has actually exposed a glaring weak spot to high pen AP and APCR shells. There's a spot on the side mantle of the mouse that's about
270mm. Shut up, I totally didn't cock this up in the script.
Meaning, yes, you can pen this with standard ammo. With a good pen roll, that is. And it is actually true that when facing a perfectly angled mouse, if you have premium heat shells, you actually stand a better chance of penning the gun mantlet with AP than the turret cheeks with heat. Before I cover the final one, if you want to learn more about this sort of thing, check out the World of Tanks playlist. Learn World of Tanks. I got a whole series of videos in this kind of style where I educate you, all you lovely gents and ladies, on various things about the game. And if you're in it for a laugh, then you can check out this video where we launch tanks into orbit using a physics glitch, which was a load of fun. So do check out those if you're interested. Finally, the Object 268, the Object 279E. Just
aim for the lower plate, lol.